think we will get started. Are you there, Stuart?
I am here. Hello, everybody. Stuart Grossman here, President of College Funding Systems, and I want to welcome everybody to our FAFSA webinar 2017 edition. So maybe some of you have joined us before with some older kids or something, but I think most of you are first timers with kids just entering senior year. And as you guys have probably heard by now, that the FAFSA needs to be done a lot earlier than before. Before we started doing the FAFSA, the 1st of January of the senior year. Now, for the last couple of years, actually this is the second year, we're doing the FAFSA starting October 1st. But we'll go over all the details today. Chris is going to be the main speaker, going through the system that we use to gather the information, and I'll give you all the details of what you need to do so we can have a smooth system. And we've used this system now for about 4 years now, I think. So the system is really, really good that we use to gather the information. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Chris Gray. And you guys all know Chris, I'm sure. And he's going to go through the main presentation, and I will be commenting as we go. Go ahead, Chris.
Great. Thanks, Stuart. Thank you so much. Well, welcome, everyone. It's so great to have all of you on the call here. Tonight, we're going to really review in depth our Client Care Center here. It's also called the File College Info site. And hopefully, most of you have already been on this site and started to fill out some of the information or received an email from us to prompt you to do so. You will have your own username and password to get onto the site that we don't even know, but we can always send it to you again, and so you can reset your password if you don't have access. So very important that we both be involved in this process. We found over the years that making sure that both of us have access to this information, we go over it together. We review it, of course, before it's filed, but that really ensures that this information is correct. And so here on the very first page is the basic information. And this is pretty much all of the students' information, their basic information. So pretty straightforward here. This is just a test student, so no worry for anyone's personal data here. But we have the student's first name, middle initial, their gender, all that good stuff. Also, you can add their social security number here, and there's some added security here as well this year. So that information is very safe. This website is double encrypted, a very safe and secure website, so no worries there. As you go down the information here, you want to make sure high school completion, pretty straightforward. If you have questions here, you can always click on the little question box and it will give you some answers there, so that's good to take a look at. So you'll fill out all this information here. When you're done with a page, make sure you click on Check Page, because it will tell you if you're missing something. So you see up here it says, hey, you're missing the social security number, okay? And it'll say some other things as well. If we click off that, those things will come up in red. Once everything is filled out and you click on Check Page, it'll say the page is okay. As you go between tab to tab, it will save automatically. But perhaps you're like me and I want to always make sure things are saved. You can click Save right here as well too on the left-hand side. So here on the left-hand side of the screen is pretty much your heads-up, your display, where you can do most of the things that you need to do. If you see Approve and Send here, that's not going to send in or submit your FAFSA. What that will do is send it to us so we can approve it and check it out. And so again, a really neat system here where we collect all the data first before it goes into the FAFSA or the CSS Profile, which we'll talk about in a second. Down here at the bottom.
Hey, Chris.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So even though you click the check page, you can still go back and change things. Okay.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't freeze the information at all. But my question is, once you go through the whole process and you're raring to go and send it to us, once they send Approve and Send, can they still change information or not?
Absolutely. They can still go back in there and change information. Correct. Yep. They can still go back in there and change information. So that's a great point, Stuart. And so once you get to the Approve and Send point, we'll take a look at it. If you have any questions, very important to call or email us so we ensure that everything is filled out. But usually by then we have a pretty good handle what the information should be, and it should be good to go. But again, always reach out to us if you have questions. Good.
The one thing, Chris, why don't you tell them about Angie, who's going to be kind of the key person in the office responsible for their main contact person on this.
Excellent point, Stuart. So we have our assistant, Anjanette Sauciedo. Perhaps you have received emails or calls from her. She is going to be the lead contact for the FAFSA, and she's going to be emailing everyone, so you make sure you have her contact information. She's the first person you want to get a hold of, and again, her name is Anjanette, and she is here in our office. All right. So also a good point, too, is, well, go ahead, Stuart.
No, go ahead. You too.
All right. So another good point here, everybody, is that most of you have already sent in your tax returns and your W-2s to us. When it comes to the tax return, we just need the first 2 pages, okay? Not the whole return, just the first 2 pages that state the adjusted gross income and the total tax. If you haven't sent those in, make sure you do so, because that will help us confirm and double check the numbers. There is a tool called the data retrieval tool that actually pulls your numbers right from the IRS. But we want to double check those and examine. Now, I have seen tax returns with mistakes and errors in the system before with the FAFSA, the actual FAFSA website. So it's important to send those documents in to us to ensure that everything in here is correct. Sound good, Stuart?
Yes. Is there any email addresses in this particular page, or is it later on?
That's later on, and again, most of you have our main company email, but again, you have also my email address that you use to register for this webinar. So again, any questions, they can reach out to us, Stuart.
No, I'm just talking about their email.
Oh yeah, so their email is in here, Stuart. Correct. Yep.
Okay, so we want their actual email address, or the student email address. And we talked about having a special email address for all their FAFSA and applications.
Good points, too. So if you see our page here, we have a primary contact email address. This should be the parent's primary contact, your main email address for the parent. But here for the student's email address, this is where the student's at, of course. And it's good to set up a special email just for college. It may seem silly, and maybe one of those things that you may want to just overlook and say, I don't want to go through the trouble, but it can help out quite a bit to have just one solid email for all of this stuff, for the FAFSA, for applications, correspondence with the college and the school, just one email, and make sure you check it regular. And also, have access to it. Just don't have the student take all the responsibility. Make sure you have access to that as well, too. All right.
That's very good.
All right. So again, there's places here for SAT scores and GPAs. Many of you students will be updating these scores here to come. And a good thing to, of course, keep the conversation open with our guidance counselors about questions about, applications and updating this information. But go ahead and put your current SAT scores in this, and also the unweighted GPA. And pretty straightforward here with the rest of these questions. So make sure you get a good look at this. Perhaps some of you are logged into your account now and following along. You could do that as well too. You could follow right along with us, have it open in another window. Next, we have the family members section here. Okay. So this is the family member section is when it starts to get about the parents. All right. So here at the top we have married or in domestic partnership, very common for most of you, but also there's divorce situations or perhaps widowed. So he has pretty much all the choices here to pick from. And then you also click the corresponding tab here as well. You just want to go through and pretty much answer these questions one by one. Most of these are usually no here. What they're trying to determine here is if you're an independent student or a dependent student. And so I've been doing the FAFSA for about 17 years now, and I'd say 90%, maybe even 95% of all students are going to be dependent students. But if you have a question, I know there's some of you out there that do fall in the independent status. You can actually click right here on this link, and it's pretty neat because it'll take you right to the website that talks about dependency status. And so you want to make sure you read through each one of these and see if you are a dependent student. And it's taking a little bit of time to load, but again, if you click on that link right there, it'll go to the website that talks about all the different options if you are an independent student. But again, for the most part, most of you are going to be dependent. All right.
Yeah, one point I want to make, it talks about, let's say the students are in a family where there's a divorce involved between mom and dad. Yeah. A lot of times we do strategies that is important to put the right person there so we can get the most financial aid.
A great point, Stuart.
So, go ahead. Why don't you explain that, Chris?
Yeah, it's a great point, Stuart, for sure. So again, there's Some of you we've just started with, and also there's ones that people that we've worked with for a while, and we should hopefully know by now which one we're going to put the FAFSA on. But again, kind of a gray area there. And so again, what they're looking for with here is the one that the parents provide more than 50% of the support. But sometimes there's a little bit of gray area there, so that's things we can work with. And if we are picking one parent versus the other, we want to make sure that all addresses, everything, are associated with that parent. I've had parents make the mistake in the past of perhaps having one parent's address on the applications and another parent's address on the FAFSA. Big mistake. Don't want to do that. That will cause a lot of red flags and give you a headache. Good. All right, so here about in the middle of the page, it asks parents' contributions towards tuition or expenses, if any. Well, this is primarily for private school. Okay, so you put in a number there if you're paying any private school tuition and any grants or scholarships for that, for high school, okay? For high school, okay? For the most part, you're not going to include information here potentially spent for community college, usually pretty nominal, but again here, there are some question marks here that can help you walk through all of this information. These are usually no here as well too, but you want to make sure you answer yes, that applies to you. All right, so again, we have the information here, and again, these are all fake names and stuff here. So again, we have the parents' information, parent 1 and parent 2. All right, so, and you want to go through the step-by-step and fill in, again, it's pretty much the basic information that's filled out for the student. Questions here, again, it's pretty straightforward. I say when it comes to the cell phone stuff here, that's one of the things that necessarily does not need to be filled out. Again, if you see a little star here, a red star, that means it's necessary. Going down the list here, we get down to the retirement plans, and so this is where you'll put in if you have you will receive Social Security. Most folks are going to receive Social Security, but if you have an IRA or other retirement account, union, you will put that in there. And then you want to be pretty accurate when it comes to your retirement accounts. So a good note here. Okay, so why they're asking about this question for the FAFSA, they do not count your retirement accounts. But why we're asking this here is because some students will be filing a CSS profile, which I'll get to in a second. And so I would say if you don't have a CSS profile school, you can be a little bit more liberal here with this number. But if you do have a CSS profile school, we want to be very, very accurate with this number because those schools will take a look at the retirement savings. Any comments there, Stuart?
Yeah, so most of the private schools, maybe, I don't know if they really even count the retirement savings. And that's the interesting thing about the CSS profile is each school, they'll gather this information, but they all interpret it in different ways. Yep. So I wouldn't be afraid of that question if you have a lot of money in your, in your 401ks and things like that. Some of them will not even count it or count it very little. It's just something that it's required to fill in.
Yep, they want a whole picture. They want these CSS profile schools, they have more financial aid, so they want to know more about you. And so they just want a better picture. So again, if you're filing a CSS profile school, try to be very, very accurate here. And we can talk about that more in our meetings to come. All right, next section here is the parent's household. So for all students living in the family at home or who are perhaps going to college, we want to make sure we list them here. The number of family members has a big effect on your expected family contribution. The more family members, the better for the EFC. So we want to make sure we get everybody in here. And then also multiple children in college. And so a good tip there is if your son or daughter who is older or is even considering going to college in the fall, perhaps, we're working with your senior, of course, but you have an older student who's perhaps under the age of 24 and not married or have children, that means they're a good bet they'd still be dependent of you. We want to make sure that we put them on here as perhaps 2 in college, if they're even considering. That's a legal and ethical strategy. If they're considering going to college in the fall, we want to make sure we put them on here, because if we don't and it comes to next fall when they're going to school, well, then it'll be too late. So we want to plan for that now. Comments there? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the areas that is I would say a little bit of a gray area in the whole system, because when you have 2 in college, it can really make a big difference in your family contribution compared to just 1 in college. So we want to be a little bit aggressive on that. Like Chris said, if they're even considering going to even a community college or a trade school or whatever, as long as it's in an accredited college, it can count as a another family member going to college.
Great. Well, thanks,
Now,
Stuart. Nice. Oh, go ahead, Stuart. Sorry.
One more thing, though. If a parent is going to college, unfortunately, that doesn't count in this whole thing. It's kids in the family going to college, not the parents themselves.
Great point, Stuart, for sure. And I see a couple of questions coming in too, everybody. We're going to have a great time for questions and answers once we're done here. And so we'll probably get through this part fairly quickly, so we'll have lots of times for questions and answers. And I'll stay as long as I can to try to answer all of your questions. So just go ahead and wait to the end, and we'll make sure and answer all those good questions.
Hey, one more thing I want to say, Chris, as we go here. If for some reason you can't stay for the whole meeting or you get interrupted or whatever, we are recording this meeting, this webinar, and we are going to post it on our website like we do all our webinars, but we also plan to email a recording to everybody that we have in our email list that we invited to this webinar. So,
yep. We'll be able to tell you a link, everybody, to the webinar. Yep.
But it's better to stay on for the whole thing so you can even ask us questions and hear what the other questions are.
Good. Great. Thanks, Stuart. So the next section is the student income section, and for the most part, a lot of students are not actually earning money with a W-2. Some are, of course, but a lot of it's under the table here. So again, they're asking about W-2 income. If you're filing taxes, if your student's working and filing taxes and has a W-2, please send those to us as well. That'll ensure this is all filled out correctly. But for the most part, a lot of times, this can all be zero for a lot of students. I've done this for a long time and filled these out. So again, a lot of times this can be zero. But if not, let's say perhaps you are doing you're filing single or a 1040A or 1040 easy, which is very common. You will just fill in this information. This bottom section is very rare. Usually, most students are, of course, not putting money towards a retirement. Some are receiving these untaxed Social Security benefits. So again, a good tip here out says not already given above. When it comes to this form, there will never be a reason for you to report something twice, okay? So for example, I've seen parents make the mistake when we were on the retirement section, okay? They were over here on the retirement section and they had their retirement assets here, but then they also put down that they had mutual funds in the countable assets section, which we'll get to in a second. Big mistake, okay? So we're only gonna, again, data will only be reported one time in this report, no duplicates, all right? Good thing to remember.
One point on student income. It's probably won't happen now because most kids are not in college yet. But in future years, remember, we got to do the FAFSA every year that the kids are in college. A lot of them are going to get work study. And work study is separated on a separate line here because they really won't count work study as student income for the FAFSA. So,
excellent. Sure. Yep.
So when you see that line, just remember any work study type of income needs to be reported separately.
Good. And if you see, folks, this is on this line right here, taxable earnings from federal work study, okay? So that's definitely different. Excellent point, Stuart. That is not counted the same. That's sort of actually a need-based financial aid. That's definitely counted different.
Right.
Great. All right. So there's our student income section. Student assets. So hopefully most of you know that these are the assets that we want to really try to move if possible. Okay. These student assets count 20% versus 5.6% for the parents. And so in years past, we usually like to keep these assets below $1,000 if possible, right, Stuart?
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. So for some of you, we are going to be working on some strategies at potentially moving those assets, and we'll be talking about that here in the weeks and months to come, hopefully before we file the FAFSA. But for the most part, we want to make sure we keep these student assets as low as possible. All right. Pretty straightforward here.
So just remember the student assets, of course, are money in their name. That's in the bank of some type. And then a lot of families have money in those UGMAs and UTMAs, what they call those custodial accounts. Those are sometimes significant amount of money that is considered student assets, and that's the money that's important to be talking to us about, how to shelter that money so it doesn't count against them.
Yep. Again, this can usually make a big difference in the amount of financial aid you could potentially receive. These student assets, a very common error that is made sometimes, having a lot of money in the student's name. Right? Parent income section. All right. So what this is here, pretty much, everyone, is a screenshot of a 1040. Okay. So if you pick IRS 1040 here, all right, you can see here pretty much line per line we have what you should put in these fields. So pretty straightforward. A lot of stuff here. Box 1, parent 1 income. Here's mistakes I've made, okay, I've seen in the past, is you want to make sure that parent 1 income matches parent 1 here in the family member section, okay? So whoever was parent 1 here, Sally in this example, we want to make sure that her income matches up with parent 1 over here. Very important not to get that mixed up. So this is a big reason why we want to see your W-2s. And so this will be the W-2 information right here. Hopefully most of you have completed your taxes. I know most of you have. If you're waiting on it, if you've kind of filed an extension there and still trying to get those finished up, please try to do so here as soon as possible. That'll make your life a lot easier with the data retrieval tool that actually pulls the numbers right from the IRS. And so that'll make things a lot easier. For those of you that perhaps that tool won't work, and that's a good note to take in your mind, this data retrieval tool, for some reason that's not going to work for you, a good way to be prepared for that is to order a tax transcript. And you can actually go right to the IRS's website and request that. Fairly simple. And if you have that tax transcript, it's an official report of your tax return, that can take the place of the data retrieval tool. The colleges have become very strict with this point. They want to make sure that everything is correct when it comes to income and assets.
So it's a lot easier now. But one more thing, it is a lot easier now since we're using 2016 taxes for this year's FAFSA compared to having to estimate what your income was going to be for 2017. That was the old system. So this is quite easy now to make sure it's done right. But one thing I do want to point out to people is if your income in 2017 is going to be somewhat less than 2016, there is a way to use that more current income later on in the process after 2017 is over, and that's in the area where we do a change of circumstances. So for the FAFSA, we got to use 2016 income, and then we can do a change of circumstances and really use the 2017 later on. But at this time we got to use 2016.
Excellent point, Stuart. So what he's saying again, everybody, is if you have your income is going to be, was lower last year. Actually, again, Stuart, yeah, higher last year than it was going to be this year. Did some changes there for sure. Yep. So yeah, good. All right. So again, as I was saying though, this is a very important part of the FAFSA right here. And in my 17 years here, I've seen this probably one of the most common mistakes. Your payments to tax-deferred savings and plans. I've seen many parents not put anything here. That can cause a problem with the school, or perhaps the number is wrong. What this number is how much you're putting towards your retirement each year. And this is a big reason why we request the W-2s. So box 12A through 12D goes in here. It tells us that right here. 12A through 12D. This is what goes in this box right here. And make sure not to add code DD. For some of you, that'll be the biggest number, and that's the health coverage premiums, okay? And why this number is so important is this is what gets added back into your adjusted gross income for the FAFSA. I know it seems unfair, but that's what the federal government's saying too. The money that you're putting towards retirement could potentially go towards college too. So that's why this is getting added back into this, into your adjusted gross income. All right, so again, pretty straightforward here with these questions. Untaxed Social Security benefits. Again, if you have questions, you have question marks over here. For the most part, I've seen most of these be zero for families. Sometimes there's child support paid, that would go in here. So pretty straightforward with this section right here at the bottom.
Hey, Chris, I do have a question though that people might want to know. Is go to that section on the bottom. There's actually 3 lines there. Payments to tax-deferred pension savings plans, but then it has parent 1 and parent 2. What, do they have to repeat it? Or what are they supposed to do?
Great point. So yeah, we have parent 1's contributions. We want to know what those are, and then parent 2, we want to know what those are, and these are then added together here for the top part right here. Okay, total payments to tax deferred savings plans. Okay, so parents 1 contribution and parents 2 contribution. Okay, so the kind of the one part I'd say here that is almost kind of a double of information, but no, we just want to know both parents' information. That helps us out quite a bit to make sure that this number is accurate here, Stuart. So that's a big reason why they ask for both parents, and then this is the total here at the top. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone, but if not, this is a section you want to be kind of careful with, make sure it's correct. All right. Now, you're not reporting there, you're not reporting too much there for sure. All right.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Nope. All right, so the parent asset section, okay? This is where we put in our checking and savings. Again, stocks, these are non-retirement accounts, non-qualified money. It's called money that is not in your retirement with mutual funds and stocks. Certificates of the CDs and treasury bills, bonds, and those other things. So again, you want to list out all your assets here. And we've also been reviewing this with you. Very important section. Again, you know, if we're moving things around, good to communicate this so we can update this, so we can make sure these numbers are correct before we file the FAFSA. So we are sheltering assets, want to make sure that these numbers are updated. And I know for some of you, we still have your large assets here that we are going to be, of course, sheltering a little bit. So we want to make sure that we update that, and we can do it together. We'll probably have a meeting coming up, or just call in, and we can make sure that's correct. All right.
So Chris, I got a question.
All right.
So, oh, that's coming up. I wanted you to talk about 529s and
okay, yep.
kind of where to go.
Good. So the next section is the business section. Okay, so do you own any parts of businesses or corporations? For the most part, I want you folks to know that if you do have, this is really important. So you'll click, when you click on this section here, it'll kind of explain this. And so what it's saying here, I'll just summarize, paraphrase for you folks, is that if you have a college, again, that is requiring the CSS profile, you're going to want to fill in this information. But if you don't have a CSS profile, which many of you won't, the majority of you probably won't, you're just going to leave this empty here, okay? They're not worrying about your businesses. And if you have a business in an LLC, for example, with less than 100 full-time employees, that's why it's asking this question, because that falls under the small business exclusion and doesn't count. Have anything to add there, Stuart?
Yeah, well, Chris, I think if they, let's say you work for a company and you're a smaller company maybe, and you're a 25% partner or something, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that 25% is going to count as an asset.
Correct.
Because to really qualify for the small business exclusion, you have to have 50% or more ownership. Okay.
That's correct.
Now, one thing to remember: let's say this small business that you belong to, the other partners or some of the other partners are part of your family. Maybe you got a brother, a sister, a dad, or a mom. As long as the total family group is over 50%, then you're good. Okay. So this is interesting. This is a minor thing that we learned about here a couple of years ago, and this has helped some of our family, people who are part of a family business.
Excellent point.
So
a lot of experience goes into that for sure. Yep.
Right. So you should talk to us about that if you have any questions, so we can make sure we're doing things correctly here. Okay.
Yep. Great. All right. Farms here again, pretty straightforward. A lot of that can be I've seen also farms as a family business. Again, they ask if you live on there. That's a big part for qualification. So then here to the children's assets, which can be kind of confusing a little bit. But again, these are students' assets that are, kind of for the student, but this is actually a parent asset. Okay, I'm sorry for the confusion there. But like a 529, for example, is for benefit of the student, but that's why it's being reported in the parent asset section. 529, college savings plans for all children. So you want to add up all the 529 assets you have and list them here. The state prepaid tuition plans, I actually have this. Yeah, this is the GET program here in Washington, and it's called similar things in other states. So
right.
I'm actually part of the reason that they actually changed this question, because a lot of times it used to be reported as 529 prepaid tuition plans, which is confusing, and sometimes parents would list this twice. Okay, so yeah, this is the GET program and state prepaid tuition programs that you would put right here for the siblings and for the student. Did you have something to add there, Stuart?
Yeah. So why do they want to know the total assets of non-college siblings under age 19?
Excellent question.
These would be the kids in high school maybe that aren't in college yet, probably.
That's right. So again, this is a question that's covering the bases for the CSS profile. because this is a really powerful form here. Once we have everything in this form that you will be filling out, we can file the FAFSA and the CSS profile at the touch of a button. And so what the CSS profile schools are saying, well, if these assets are held under non-college siblings under age 19, the parents could potentially have access to them, and they could use those to pay for college. So again, these CSS profile schools, they're trying to cover all the bases.
Yeah, or maybe they're worried that you might give a bunch of your money to your younger kids so it doesn't count or something. I don't know.
That's right. That's a good point, Stuart. That's right. Mm-hmm. All right. Very, very good. Okay. So down here we have the home. All right. So if you own your home, you want to list out the information here. If you see here, minimum derived value, what that is, that number comes from the housing index multiplier. And many of you have received a book from us that you got at the workshop that you went to, and it actually talks about this. But if you Google housing index multiplier, it'll come right up, and you can put in the purchase price for your home, the year it was purchased, and it will give you this minimum derived value. That's a legal and ethical number to make sure that you don't overvalue your home. And you want to really make sure you do that with non-home real estate. So if you have rentals of those things that we have not sheltered, you want to make sure that you're not overvaluing those. And again, when it comes to non-home real estate, those can be sheltered in an LLC and fall under the small business exclusion, but there are some rules there. For example, you want to make sure that it's not reported in Schedule E of your tax return. So that's a good thing to talk about with your tax pro potentially, and that way you make sure those assets don't count. Have any comments there, Stuart?
Yeah, so if you are, a lot of you have rental houses, and we talked about putting them to an LLC, which is good. That's really the main thing you got to do. But the second step is to put those LLCs in their own tax return.
Yep.
And that will really seal the deal as far as those being a separate business entity that doesn't count against you for the FAFSA. Yep. So it's really, it doesn't change your overall tax bill at all. It just is, have a separate tax return for those LLCs, and then that whatever the loss or gain from that tax return is, it gets, becomes part of your 1040. So it's really going to be the same numbers that they're used for your tax return, but it's just good to do it the correct way. It might be a few dollars more for your accountant to do two separate tax returns, but that's really will save you a bunch of money in the long run.
Great, excellent, good point, Stuart. And for many of you, I know a lot of your assets, the bulk of your accountable assets, sit in these rental properties. And so I know it may seem like too much trouble, but it is definitely worth it. And it's not too difficult to set up that LLC, right, Stuart?
Not that hard. And you can, we talked to most of you about how to do that. And so if you need some assistance, be sure to talk to us. There's a lot of great information online on how to set up LLCs. So they're much easier than they were just a few years ago.
Great, thanks, Stuart. So this next page is a very, very important one. It's the college information page. And over the years, we've had many of our clients call in and say, hey, what's my student's FAFSA username and password, okay? So we are actually generating these for you, and they will be logged right here. And you should definitely let us do this for you, because our computer makes a very strong password, almost hard to type in correctly if you can see it, believe it or not. And so these are where the passwords are stored and where you can access them. If you already have a FAFSA username and password, that's okay. Just make sure you put it in here and it's correct, because if it's not, we won't be able to file your FAFSA, and sometimes that can force us to get locked out and can cause a lot of headaches. Here we have the College Board login. And so what this is, many of you folks have a College Board login, or your students do, from doing the SAT and those things. So this is where you'll put that College Board login. Again, you will need this if we're doing a CSS profile, and that's why it asks for it. Going down here, this is where we add the colleges, okay? So, we can see here we have a list of colleges. Just for example, we'll say University of Texas here in Dallas. If you see here, there's a college username and password, and also the college portal. This is where you can put the URL, the website for the college, and then also your FAFSA username and password, and then you can simply click on this, and this is how you can have everything in one place and complete your applications, for example. So this system does a lot of things. You can have everything in one place, and it makes it very, very easy. Good tip there too is hopefully all of you, I mean, there's a lot of different scholarships out there that come from the university, and so it's also good to take a look at that college's website, okay, if it's one of your top choices, and kind of shop around a little bit on their financial aid website. There may be an obscure scholarship on there that perhaps you haven't heard about or known about before. Okay. So I'm going to add a college here to show you how it's done, and what I'm going to do actually is add a profile school so you can see what happens. So you can see here at the top of our list here, it doesn't say anything about a CSS profile. So I'll click on add a college. Let's say we go to Tulane in Louisiana, a popular college for some students. All right?
Yep.
When you select your application status here, for the most part, this is just for you. Regular decision is just fine. If you're doing early action or early decision, that's something that is pretty much handled on your applications. So you can put that, of course, but for the most part, you can just go ahead and click on regular decision here. This question bar here is mostly just for you. All right, so we click on add the college, and you see here, boom, profile school popped up. And so that gives us another tab, some more work to do to satisfy that. A lot of good information here. It shows our FAFSA code. It shows our deadlines here for most schools. Some schools, like for example, the community college, very liberal deadlines. But other colleges you see here, March 1st, for example, is their deadline. And also you'll see the submitted date. So this is a good place to check and see if your FAFSA was submitted or not. A lot of parents will call us up and say, hey, I haven't heard anything from George Fox. Did they get our FAFSA? Well, you can go right here and see that it was actually filed. Okay. So here's Tulane, and you can see here it has a profile code, meaning that we need to fill out the CSS profile. All right. So just a little bit more work there. Also, you see here at each school, we have our aid award, and there's no entries made. So when you start to get award letters, which has changed in the past, a lot of times families didn't get award letters until March and April of senior year. We've seen students get award letters now in December and January, right, Stuart?
Rarely, but as the schools get more and more used to the earlier deadlines, I think their systems will enable them to start getting out those award letters earlier. We hope. We like to see them coming out earlier, so it gives the parents a lot more time to review it and have a chance to, you know, try to get a better award letter if they want to do some negotiating.
Absolutely. It's a really great change they made, bumping the FAFSA up. So if you see here on our aid award entry, this is where it shows our in-state and out-of-state tuition. You can put in the cost of attendance quoted on the award letter. These numbers up here should be fairly close, but again, college prices go up, and so you want to make sure you quote the attendance on the award letter, the cost of attendance, and then you'll put in the scholarships and grants for the school, Pell Grants, again, pretty straightforward, and there's help pains for each of this. And this will be able to tell us what your out-of-pocket costs are, but also this system is pretty neat. It'll be able to analyze this data versus the school's historical averages and also your students' grades and SAT scores, and let us know if it's a good offer or not. So a pretty neat tool when it comes time for the award letter evaluation and possible negotiation.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to have a separate webinar soon after the first of the year that really talk more detail about this whole system of evaluating awards and how we're going to go about doing it. So,
and that's moved up to that. Yeah, and that's moved up too, Stuart. When might we do that award letter evaluation? Maybe that webinar, maybe in January or February? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should do it around then sometime. Yeah, because they'll start getting.
We used to do that in March and April, everyone. But again, with the changes to the FAFSA, this process has definitely been bumped up. All right, so you'll definitely get notification of that. So here is the information for the profile school. All right, so very important. You'll see here it asks for a card type and a card number. This money is not going to us. This goes to the College Board, the College Scholarship Service. And so you can see here the application itself costs $25 and each school is $16. So a good tip I like to say about profile schools, you want to make sure that your student is serious about going to the school because it is a lot of work and it costs a fee. So make sure it's a school that they are applying to and they're serious about it. You can talk with us. Yeah. Take a look at it. That's what's so nice about our program and our reports. We can take a look at some of these schools and see if it's even possible, and maybe hopefully shorten that list down a little bit. So again, these schools, a lot of work, and it costs a fee to fill it out too. All right. So you see here, they're asking, for the most part, folks, what they're doing here is they're trying to kind of pump you for information, all right? So you see students' expected resources and expenses. They're asking about if the student has any IRAs, which is pretty rare, or veterans benefits, which again, not usually applicable. But also they're asking about expected wages and salaries in 2018. So yeah, you don't know if your student's really going to be working or not in the summer. And they might be. But again, for the most part, I usually put zeros here unless you're 100% positive they're going to have a summer job. Again, for the most part, zeros will be just fine here. Some good questions here. They're also asking about, this is where you would put in private scholarships, any other grants and scholarships that are not coming from the school itself, okay? All right, so you put some scholarships in there. Again, this is CSS profile information. They want to know everything. And the last question, very important too. They're asking about 529s that potentially the parents would have, grandpa and grandma would have, or other family members. That's where you put that here. But if you read very closely, it's saying do not include amounts expected from 529 prepaid tuition plans, like the GET. So if the grandparents have a GET program, the GET credits, you do not put it in here. Anything to add there, Stuart?
No, I think that's good.
Good, all right. All right, so here's the parents' expected resources and expenses. This would be the child support you expect to pay in 2017, a little bit extra information here. Have you had very high medical bills that were not covered by insurance? This is a chance to plead your case there. Car loans, repayment of parents' education loans. So if you have high student loans as a parent, this is what you can start to plead your case there as well. So some good information to fill in there. And then also recent year income, you report that here for parent 1 and 2, other taxable income, and they also want to have what you project to make in the next year. So sometimes that doesn't change, sometimes it goes up a little bit. Again, be very conservative with these numbers. And again, questions, give me a call, but you want to be pretty conservative here. Again, these profile schools are really just trying to grab more and more information, and you can be pretty conservative here, I found, over the years. Okay, comments and explanations, okay? So the comments and explanations part, again, you only need to fill this out, okay? And that's how I'd like it, Stuart, too, I found in the past. This only needs to be filled out if you're filling out a CSS profile. If you have any special circumstances, go ahead and email that to us, and we can talk about the special circumstances form or going after the college that way. If you have a CSS profile, this is where you can fill out some special circumstances. If you are going to fill out this section, please talk to me first. I want to make sure what we're telling the school exactly here to make sure that we're not going overboard. Pretty rare that you would fill this out, but sometimes there is something to explain. And again, only the CSS profile schools take a look at this part of this form. There's another form for other state schools or private schools that don't require the CSS profile that we would fill out separate. Anything to add there, Stuart?
Yeah, well, so it sounds like this information will go to the school, right, as part of this profile?
That's right. So if you're filing a CSS profile, the comments and explanation section will go for the profile. I've had parents sometimes make the mistake of talking about moving assets around there. Again, what we do is legal and ethical. You do not have to tell the school about that, okay? So you don't need to put that in the comments and explanations. You don't need to explain yourself. If that comes up, we can fill out another form to go to the school. But again, this information, the comments and explanation section, will go to the school if you are filling out a CSS profile. Right. I want to add another college here too, just to show one more thing that happens sometimes. I'm going to add Stanford, all right, a famous profile school. Right. And other schools may ask this as well too. So they ask supplemental questions, okay? Supplemental questions that will be a little bit extra. So we'll add Stanford in there. Regular decision, click add. So here, some supplemental questions popped up, okay? So this is where they ask even more stuff, okay? They ask if you're paying for support for any relatives. So maybe perhaps you have elderly parents living with you and you're taking care of. You can plead your case there. They're asking for some more W-2 income. This is actually being updated. I know 2015 is not the right year, but again, most applicants' parents have W-2 earnings. And so for the most part, this is going to be yes. These supplemental questions are different for every school that asks them. And again, this is just a CSS profile thing. Some of them, believe it or not, even ask what kind of car you drive. They ask what the major field of study is and the career objective. So again, these are questions that are just required by Stanford. You fill these out, you click save, you'll be good to go there. All right, well, that pretty much gets us to the end of the Client Care Center, the File College Info site. What I'd say is most important with this website is to take that first step, log on, log in, and start to take a look at some of this stuff so you can get familiar with the website. For most of you, we already have this information filled out, but if we still need to do some work there, let's set up a meeting and let's get it done here. We have about a month to get it done. All right, Stuart, any comments?
So you said we got about a month. So we'd like to get all your information in before October so we can get it in early October. But I wouldn't get too excited if there's some things that we're working on together that maybe won't be done by the first part of October. So,
yeah, great.
In reality,
yep.
Go. Why do you explain what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah. So good point there, Stuart. So what Stuart's saying there is, again, I've done the FAFSA for a long time, and I've had parents actually call up and kind of get nervous and crazy about this situation and say, hey, you didn't file my student's FAFSA on September 30th at 10:00 p.m. because actually the FAFSA is on Central Time and that's 2 hours ahead, and you could have filled it out at 12:00 a.m. Believe it or not, folks, that has happened more than I'd like to admit. That is crazy. Okay, so these colleges know how much money they have, and they know how many students they're going to admit roughly. So there's what's called priority deadlines, okay, which means if you get your information in before that date, for the most part, you're going to be fine. These schools that we have right here are actually not a good example of priority deadlines because they're pretty far out, okay? But for example, most priority deadlines are about a month and a half after the FAFSA becomes available. So for example, October 1st, it becomes available. You have pretty much till November 15th for most schools, and you'll be just fine. And so if we're making moves, you can relax and take it easy. That most all of our FAFSAs we're going to file in the first 1 to 2, 3 weeks of October, which will be just fine. But for those of you who are maybe waiting a little bit longer to move things around, definitely worth that. Okay. Anything to add there, Stuart?
Yeah, it's much better to file your FAFSA a little bit later after all the important moves are made to lower your family contribution than worry about are you getting it in early enough.
So the aid is on a first come, first served basis, but again, these schools know how much money they have and they know how many they're going to admit. And that's another good point too. So, the reason why they've moved it to FAFSA, everyone, is to kind of really correlate it and connect it with the application process. So, we can get your FAFSA in very quickly, but the school is not even going to look at it until you've applied to that school. So that's why it's also important to get your applications in soon. And that's why we had that application boot camp a couple of weeks back. Very important to get applications, essays, recommendations, get that stuff up, get that stuff out as soon as possible, because in the school, just be waiting for that FAFSA. They get that in, you are going to be ahead, I'd say, of a large percentage, at least more than 50% of families, probably even more, if you can get the FAFSA and the application in quickly. All right.
Good.
So I think what we'll do now here, Stuart, is we're going to open it up for some questions, and we have quite a few here. And so I'm going to open up that question pane. It looks like we have a question here. Who do we send the tax info to? So please send that to our office, and hopefully most of you have our email address. And in the emails that you've received from us, there is our address in there as well too. I would send it, what I'm going to do here is have my assistant, Anjanette, send out an email to everyone. She is the best person to send that to directly, and she has her own email through us. Let me grab that for you right quick. Hopefully, I'll see if I could actually write a. Let me see here.
As you guys, but one thing I want you guys to know is that we recently changed our email addresses. We have now email addresses tied to our Grossman College funding, right? Everybody else has their own email address.
Correct.
Is that how it works, Chris?
That's right. So what I'm doing here is I'm writing down Angie's email right now, and I'm going to send that to everybody that's on the webinar right now. And that's Angie, SANJIES at GrossmanCollegeFunding.com, all one word, GrossmanCollegeFunding.com. So here we go. We're going to send that to everybody. All right. So again, if you need to get that, just let us know. All right. So another question we have here, Stuart. What happens if you have multiple retirement accounts? Do you add them all together? Yes, you do, right, Stuart? Yep.
Yes, of course.
You want to make sure that they are retirement accounts, though, not, we don't want to mix retirement and non-retirement mutual funds. See, a question here is, what is a CSS profile? I think we answered that pretty good. Again, a special form that's required by, I'd say about maybe 20% of the private schools in the country. I think the last stat I saw. So not a lot of colleges here on the West Coast really ask for that CSS profile, right, Stuart?
Right. Yeah, I would say it's more the more Ivy League-ish type of schools, the very hard to get into schools, the ones that we've talked about that have really good financial aid that are very hard to get into. Those are the ones that are the likely culprits to get the profile.
Yep. Here's a question I love to answer, and sorry to jump on it a little bit. The question is there a benefit for a child to be an independent or dependent student? Is there referring to a child being legally emancipated? Now, this is very, very popular because, of course, things have changed, and they've gotten really good with this over the years. And perhaps friends or their parents you've heard talking to have said, oh, yeah, I know they're independent once they move out of the house, or perhaps when this happens or that happens. There is definitely a benefit. There is a huge benefit to having a student declared independent or emancipated. But I'll let all of you know that the colleges are on top of this, and again, 95% of the time, this is not going to be the case. It takes a lot to be declared an independent student. The main criteria right off the bat is 24, married, or has children. If your student is 24, married, or has children, they're independent. Other things, if they're homeless, if your student was homeless at one time or in foster care, they would be independent. Or legally emancipated. Let's say that both parents died and perhaps grandma or uncle is taking care of the student and they're in legal guardianship. Pretty rare situations and usually not going to be the case. I know a lot of people try for that. I'm actually working with a family I spoke with today where perhaps they are going into the military and looking for emancipated status. And I've done a lot of research there. It's kind of a gray area there, but again, it's pretty darn tough to get independent status for your students. Anything to add there, Stuart?
Not really. I would just say that one other thing, if any of your students, maybe an older student or something, is going into graduate school, they might not be 24 yet, then the FAFSA is done based on the student income and assets, not the parents anymore.
Great point, student. Yeah, I forgot one criteria. Yep, if your student's already graduated from college and they're now going undergraduate school, postgraduate, they are also independent. Good catch, Stuart. So here's another good question. Does a SEP IRA also count against us for the FAFSA compared to the 401k? I'll let you tackle that one, Stuart.
Well, a SEP IRA is an IRA, right? So it doesn't count. It's a retirement asset. It's just a different type of IRA. There's Roth IRAs, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs. All those IRAs are not going to count against you. Now, what's tricky is there's one kind of IRA, it's called a Coverdale IRA. And I don't know why they call it an IRA, because it's not really a retirement account, but a Coverdale really is very similar to a 529. So a Coverdale does count against you, just like a 529 does.
Good. Good. So yeah, I see another question here. What is a CSS profile? We've explained that pretty well. Again, I bet a majority of you are not going to even have to deal with this. If you do pick a school that has a profile, probably good to give me a call. Most of you know my number, 509-342-4721. We can talk about it, but most of you are probably not going to file a profile. The ones that do, we can definitely tackle that. Here's another good question. What's the name of the site where I can access the FAFSA? So if you type, FAFSA right into Google, you'll get to the FAFSA website. But don't worry about that. That's why you hired us, to help you fill out this form. And you can actually really complicate things and mess things up if you start to fill out a FAFSA and want us to help you fill it out as well. This is the site that you want to go to is our File College Info site or the Client Care website. And if you don't have access to that, make sure you call or email us and we will send that to you again. So for the person who asked this question, I'm actually going to make a note, okay? And I'm actually going to send you your Client Care Center login after I get off the phone tonight. All right.
Yeah, like Chris is saying, there's really no reason for you guys to go into the FAFSA directly. So Chris, one thing we should talk about is what happens if a mistake is made or or something is done wrong when we fill out the FAFSA, how easy is it to change it and correct it?
Yeah, for us, if we're a part of the process, we are very, very easy, very smooth, very quick at noticing there was a mistake and getting in there and correcting it with this system. But and that's why you hired us again, folks. I mean, a lot of people fill out these FAFSAs, and again, yes, a lot of people perhaps fill them out with no problems. But in my experience, again, a real stat with the Department of Education is 90% of these things going with some sort of mistake. And so one of the ones I've seen very, very often is that some families will want to see their FAFSA and go in there and start to make changes, but then not submit it, okay? They won't submit it. So there's lots of ways to get tied up here. So that brings me to a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, Stuart. Is after we file the FAFSAs, we are going to send out student aid reports to all of you, okay? And if you can be careful, you can also log on to the FAFSA website and with your FAFSA username and password and actually get your student aid report without making any changes. All the student aid report it's like a tax return for your FAFSA. It's all the data that's on the FAFSA, and you can review it for errors, which you should, okay? And we'll be sending out all those SARs, or student aid reports, to parents very shortly there in October, right, Stuart?
Yep.
Yep.
So this is your chance. Yeah, so this is your chance to really see what is actually submitted to the FAFSA, and we really like you guys to review it. And let us know if there's any questions or changes or whatever so that we can correct the FAFSA. It's really no big deal to correct it. They've made it a lot easier now to do that. So that's the scoop there.
That's right. Good. Yep. All right. So this is a really great question. I love this question. It shows me that a parent's really thinking. So this is very good, folks. I like this one. So on the profile school page, what is the best way to honestly yet conservatively answer the question about what do the parents think they can comfortably afford to pay for college? I absolutely love this question because there's a great strategy to doing this. One of the things to put in there that's real, the school will actually respect, is potentially your expected family contribution. Now, some of you will have a huge EFC, so I don't expect you to put like 86,000 or even 45,000 on there. But many of you parents will have an EFC. Yeah. So let me talk about a strategy here a little bit. If your EFC is lower than the cost of attendance at the college, well, that means you have a need. And the school sees that. They see that EFC, and they know, okay, even the profile schools, they see both, okay? They have the FAFSA and the profile. So what you can conservatively say here is just say your EFC. Maybe you want to say less, but the school knows based off your income and assets that they think that you can at least pay that. What do you have to say there, Stuart? That's my 2 bits, but
that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Because so if they're going to help you out with 100% of your need, that would be great, right? If your EFC is, let's say, 25,000 and the school costs 60,000, what's that? That's about it's a pretty large need, and if they can help you with all that need, that would be a wonderful thing.
That's right. So again, if your EFC is like 38, 40,000 and you put 20 or 15,000, that's probably honest, right? I mean, it's tough to pay that much for college, but the school, the profile school, they're not going to really take you serious. Okay. But again, that question, you can be, I haven't seen it make a big deal over the years, but again, I would keep it pretty conservative, honest, keep it somewhere around your EFC. The EFC is not too high. That's a good question to potentially give me a call. We can take a look at your overall file, your situation, the college, kind of your plan to pay for college, and we can help you answer that question. That's a really great question.
Mm-hmm.
All right. On the college page, what is the college username, password, and college portal? Why do we enter this info? Great question there. All right. So if you remember, I talked about that a little bit. And let me kind of minimize this out of the way so you folks can see that. If you can see my screen here, here is Tulane. And so what this is doing here is trying to make your job easy as parents. This college process is so daunting with applications and everything else involved. We're trying to make this as easy as possible. So this college information page, this is where you can put your college username and password and the website for the college, where you would access their online applications, and also look at other stuff too, maybe look for some scholarships and other deadlines and other information that the college may have. But the main reason this is here, I know from the programmer, is for applications. This means that anytime you can log in to your client care center and the student can click right here and get started started on applications, because you'll be able to save your applications to come back to them. You don't have to knock the whole thing out right now, but many of your students can actually start to log in to some of these colleges and at least get started on their applications, which will save you a lot of time. Great question. All right, let's see what else we have here. Lots of good questions, folks. Let me open this back up here. Okay. Can you explain the benefits of lowering your assets? Well, that's a great question. Well, the way to look at assets, countable assets, they count at 5.6% against your financial aid. And so the way to remember everyone here, this might be kind of fun here, we'll have a little refresher course here. Let's pull up what I'm going to do for them, Stuart, is I'm actually going to show them the financial aid formula. So hopefully folks all see the screen here right now, okay? So here's the financial aid formula. So let's say your cost of attendance, and we're going to a private school, is $60,000. And that's everything again, room, board, tuition, fees, books, and the whole shot. Let's say, based off your income, that your EFC is right around $18,000. And if you have an EFC of $18,000, that means you roughly make right around $100,000 per year. But let's say that you have maybe $200,000 in assets. Well, that raises your EFC up to $26,000, okay? So that means your need has been decreased quite a bit. So of course, 60,000 minus 26,000, that's 34,000. So now you need 34,000. So if we shelter assets and we lower those assets, lots of ways to do that potentially, by that 8,000 roughly, that means that, you know, we get this back down to 18,000, that your need has increased. Now your need is even more. Your need about maybe 42,000, right, Stuart?
Right. Yep.
Yep. You need even more now from the college. So now you qualify for more need-based financial aid. It's that simple, hopefully. And again, that's a big area where we can help you out. Now, I'd say if you don't have a need at the school, there's no chance for need. Well, where your assets sit potentially may not make a big deal. But if you can manifest some need at a college, that's just more money. You times that by 8 years of college for all your students, could be a lot of money. And again, our group has been helping families with that for nearly 30 years. That is a reality. All right. Anything to add there, Stuart?
Well, if you have more than one student going to school at the same time, then that really will lower your family contribution a lot based on your assets. So you may not have a big need with one in school, but maybe a year or two later when the next one comes along, then your need will be potentially a lot bigger. So you'll actually get some good money when the second student comes along.
Oh, that is an excellent point, Stuart. I almost forgot that too. So again, yeah, maybe you just for years 1 and 2, your EFC is so high, maybe it's 50,000, or we'll say maybe 40,000, and you have no need at this state school. But with 2 in college, okay, everyone, this is going to chop this right in half to right around 20,000. Well, now that you have 2 in college, your need may be 5,000. So yeah, it may be really important then where your assets sit, okay? Because again, you can qualify for some more financial aid, plain and simple. All right? Right. Good. Good stuff, Stuart. All right, let's get some more questions going here. A couple more questions. Here we go. Let me get this here. All right. Let me kind of delete some of these. We have quite a few questions. Thanks for all the questions, everybody. It's nice when everyone can ask that. So yeah, benefits of lowering assets. Good, we answered that. I assume the info added to the college preference page does not become part of the FAFSA. Let me see if I can understand that. College preference page does not become part of the FAFSA. Not
what
quite
would that be?
College preference. Oh, I see here.
Oh, the preference. Up and down. Which one is the most important preference? See that?
A great question too. So in years past, several years ago, that did matter a little bit, but now the schools can't really see the order. Okay, I actually read an article on that I think a year or two back. And so yeah, the order of the colleges does not matter on the college preference page. It's not going to matter. If a school is number 10, that's fine. It's nice for us to know too, but on another note, the colleges that, maybe just to make sure I get the question right, the colleges on the preference page, of course, are going to go on the FAFSA. They'll become part of the FAFSA, okay? Just not the order, all right? Just not the order. So, oh yeah, so maybe I assume the info added to the college preference page. I don't know. Also, yeah, so again, application part, that's not going to be part of the FAFSA. When should we expect to get the FAFSA username and password? We have a lot of these already for most of you. For those of those we don't, we're going to be getting all of these right there in the first part of October when we file the FAFSA. So, there's no point really getting that until you're going to sign and file the FAFSA. So even for some of you, we might not even have a FAFSA username and password until we file. That's okay. That is perfectly okay. The only reason to have a FAFSA username and password is to sign the FAFSA. All right. So we will be getting those for you. If you want to get those yourself, I can understand that, but I'd like to advise against it. Okay. I'd like to to advise against it because I've seen too many times that create too much confusion. Right? All right, almost done with questions here, Stuart, it looks like. Regarding LLCs and rentals, when trying to change the legal name on the mortgage doc, we were told we had to refi. My assumption is that the name of the LLC needs to appear on the loan doc as well as the parcel property if we info with the county. How do we go around this if you advise putting in the LLC? Any comments?
Yeah, so we've talked to various mortgage people about that, and if you already have, I don't know, I think the question is, if you already have a mortgage, do you have to let the mortgage company know that you changed the status of that property from a personal asset to an LLC? They don't really care. It's not going to change the terms of your loan at all. You still got to make the same payments and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's better just not, you don't need to tell the mortgage company that you're changing the status to an LLC.
Yeah, and we've done that many.
Right. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, and we've done that many times, and I've actually heard this before too, for the person who asked this question, that sometimes the bank has got a little crabby and perhaps tried to call the loan or something ridiculous like that. But that's something you want to kind of sit down and talk to them about, because I actually have a rental property myself, and it made perfect sense to put it into LLC for liability reasons. And so the question also says here too, Stuart, that we were told that we had to refi. Yeah.
No.
So that really, a good thing to call in, and we can set up a meeting and kind of talk about that and powwow on that, because I know that sometimes this LLC, and actually I know the person who asked this question, it can make a huge difference. And so we want to try to make that happen if possible. And if there's a will, there's a way. Okay. How do we enter information about sole proprietorship for business ownership? That's another good question. So again,
sole proprietorship. So again, that means you own a business, and if sole proprietorship means you're the only owner. So, well, I don't know, let's say you own a business and you have a bunch of assets in the business, like maybe you're a construction company and you got a bunch of equipment or something. That's not going to count as an asset, right? Because you're the owner. So that would be okay.
That's right. So yeah, you're looking for more than 50% ownership, right, Stuart?
Yeah.
That's right. All right. And I know in this system too that again, for the most part, I mean, if you are 50%, more than a 50% owner, and you're not filing a profile school, and it's an LLC, you're not gonna have to worry about it. You're not gonna worry about reporting on this. And right there would ask about businesses. There's a help pane right there that will really help explain that. All right. Let's see here. We've got 2 more questions. Can we do college applications through the care center? We go to the college website. Question. I love that question. So yeah, you can actually do your college applications through this client care center. I mean, you go to the client care center, you'll click on that link under the college, and it will take you right to the college to start to fill out the application. So right, it will bring you. That's what it's doing actually. It's bringing you to the college website. It's just making one spot. You're the websites and the username and password. It's just a convenience. It's very convenient. Okay. Oh. You walking somewhere, Stuart? There's some heavy breathing there.
Uh-oh.
Okay. All right, we have another question here. Oh, here's a good thing. So I see a good question here from someone that says, can you clarify? It sounds like you are recommending minimizing all our cash in parent and children's savings. What is a good total minimum? So I love that question, and so that's why it's important for us to have a meeting, okay, to really take a look at that and see what it is. We are definitely, I mean, countable assets, whether they're just sitting in checking and savings or mutual funds, depending on what college you're going to, yeah, it can make a big difference in how much financial aid you qualify for, need-based. So in the welcome packet that hopefully all of you have received from us or will receive very shortly, it talks about a family protection allowance. And so we can calculate this for you again at any time. So how old you are, how many children you have, independents, family members, determines this asset protection allowance. And so let's say your asset protection allowance was $20,000 and you had $50,000 accountable assets. Well, that means only $30,000 is going to count against you. Okay. So a good total minimum here was it'd be a number below that asset protection allowance. And that is actually in your welcome packet. And if we didn't have your correct ages, then, because a lot of times we send that out right after the first meeting when we don't know your ages yet, we can rerun that again to tell you what your asset protection allowance is. Right, Stuart?
Yeah, but I have to say, you know, I look at it and pretty typical. It's like 18 to 20,000, so it's not going to be all that much.
Mm-hmm. Good point, Stuart. Yeah, so that asset protection allowance and a lot of the folders you received from us at the workshops a long time ago, we have a great insert that talks about that. And you can actually Google that. It talks about college savers being penalized more and more. And so this asset protection allowance, unfortunately, has continued to shrink. It's gone down. Yep, it's gone down. And so they're allowing parents to have less and less in assets before it counts to get them for financial aid. Which we encourage you to, to have a meeting with us, and we can talk about some of the strategies there some more. Well, that was the last question. And so I think we'll get ready to wrap things up. Do you have any closing thoughts, Stuart?
Well, my closing thoughts are we're excited to enter the FAFSA season. It's an exciting time for our company and really show you guys what we can do to help you guys get through this process in as painless a way as possible and get things in accurately and on time and with the best to try to get your lowest family contribution possible with the strategies that we've been talking to. So if we're in the process of working on a plan that's going to potentially decrease your assets that are accountable for the FAFSA, make sure, we got those appointments set with us. And if we don't, so we try to, just today I was kind of going through a lot of our senior clients to see where we are on our different meetings. And almost all people are really good. They got appointments set up. We're right on schedule to get things ready for the FAFSA and try to get your plans, completed and stuff. So that's good. Just be sure if you think you need to talk with us some more or have questions, just let us know. We'll get you on the calendar.
Excellent. Great. Well, great point, Stuart. And so again, everyone, this webinar will be recorded. We will email you a link to it. We started the webinar about a half hour in, and so when we send you that link, you can actually jump forward ahead and listen to the beginning. But again, we will have it edited and cleaned up and all that good stuff and posted to our website, and hopefully under a week. And so that should be coming very soon. So for Stuart Grossman and myself, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. And any questions, be sure to let us know. And have a great evening, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.